Kenyan news.
First story tonight. A little unknown story. Thanks, shout out to Reef for pulling this for me. So we're gonna go head over to the African continent for a bit.
Okay.
So there was the UK Army, I guess, was doing target practice in a region in Kenya.
Okay.
That caused a major fire within the community.
Yeah.
And Kenyans were like, screw y'all, compensate us. And the UK Army was like, hell no, we won't do such a thing. So shout out to Declassified UK, who did an investigative story on this, that they say that they actually helped them in terms of getting the compensation that Kenyans wanted in order to, as compensation for obviously destruction of land, homes, all the things in this region in Kenya. So surprisingly, CNN reported on this. So we're going to watch that clip first just to give you guys a summary of some context. And then we're going to go into the article where Declassified UK goes into specifics of the incident and how they supported, this court case. So
a forest fire raging through the hills of central Kenya in 2021, burning over 10,000 acres of protected land and smothering the local community with toxic smoke. The British Army posted this video at the time of their troops tackling the blaze.
The local community behind us is safe, and we're also quite aware that there's wildlife that we need to protect.
Those words now jarring, as neither the community nor the wildlife were ultimately kept safe. The British government has agreed to pay out nearly $4 million to thousands of locals whose lives were changed forever by the fire, according to a settlement agreement obtained by CNN. The blaze in the Loldaiga Hills started during a training exercise of the British military inside a privately owned wildlife conservancy. Speaking to me before the settlement was agreed, activist James Mwangi says the fire wrecked the environment and harmed people far outside the area.
This area, in 2021 March, it was a furnace. For 7 days, over 10,000 people were choked by smoke, that toxic smoke. Nearly everyone in this community has chest problems. Everyone.
This is now our life, this woman told me, showing her inhaler. Hannah Wanjiko starts crying when she tells me about the sick grandchildren she is struggling to raise. My grandchildren are all unwell, Hannah told me. Even I can no longer read, and I've developed chest problems, she says. We live a difficult life. Hannah, like so many members of the community, says she wants to use any compensation money she receives to leave the area and get away from the British forces. Kenya earns about $400,000 annually for allowing the British Army to train here.
We actually went to court.
This 27-year-old lawyer grew up in the area and filed a class action lawsuit against the British Army after the fire.
Military training and conservation are incompatible. There is need to separate both of them. My client expected much more money from this payment, but this payment is nowhere close to give them the financial assistance to enable them move from these trainings.
The British government has agreed to compensate more than 7,000 people whose lives were impacted by the smoke and flames, but they have refused to admit liability and have blocked locals from pursuing any further claims relating to the fire. Many people here have been campaigning for years for justice. Some will receive just $170, their lawyer says. The British government said Thursday it was, quote, pleased that a global settlement has been agreed, saying that the Loldaiga fire was extremely regrettable. Many here tell us the behavior of troops from the former colonial power is becoming too much to tolerate. Larry Medowo, CNN, Laikipia, Kenya.
Okay. Well.
Right.
And go to the next slide. Bip, there we go. I got it.
All right. Oh, great. So let's get into the meat and the potatoes. So as I said, this article was written by Phil Miller from Declassified UK, where he writes how we helped Kenyans win environmental battle with UK Army. 4 years after British troops caused a major fire in Kenya, victims are receiving compensation, or as I say, reparations, thanks in part to our investigation. So Phil writes, No.
There you go.
Move.
Do the
Thank
thing.
you. There you go. UK military has agreed to pay millions of pounds in compensation to thousands of people affected by fire it sparked on the foothills of Mount Kenya in 2021. The payout is being made without admission of liability, despite a British soldier posting on Snapchat during the incident, caused the fire, killed an elephant, and feel terrible about it, but hey ho, when in Rome.
What the fuck? You're not even in Rome, first of all. I
Yeah.
don't even know where he's at. You know?
No, I
Fucking
think, well, it's
idiots.
the idea of like, well, I think it's the idea of like, oh, well, not even, it's just the idea of like, oh, we're in a different country, so whatever. But it's like, oh, well, we caused a fire, we killed animals, but who cares? You know?
Right.
Like
I
just
know.
the blatant disregard,
Yeah.
you know, of the natural ecosystem that is in Kenya. So fuck the people there, fuck the animals there. Like there's a fire, who cares? So anyway, a total of 2.9 billion pounds will be shared among 7,723 Kenyans who filed complaints in a case led by the African Center for Corrective and Preventable Action. The amount falls far short of the 1 billion pounds claimants demanded, but still represents a victory in a David and Goliath battle that saw nomadic cattle grazers, a children's refuge, and a women's cooperative take on the former colonial power. Father to Linus Mugangiri died fighting the fire that started at Logadaga Ranch near Mount Kenya. His widow, Karen Gatwiri, took Declassified. Linus used to complain that anytime the British Army visited Logadaga, they were rowdy, caused explosions, and lighting fires that the workers had to extinguish. The ranch was
Okay.
owned by Robert Wells, a descendant of colonial settlers who the British Army paid for permission to train on the land. He has since sold much of his stake at Logadaga and lives comfortably in the UK. Declassified investigated the case extensively, first exposing how it followed 5 smaller blazes sparked by British troops in the month before. None of those incidents were probed by the Army, who went ahead with an exercise of Logadaga in what British High Commissioner Jane Marriott called tinderbox conditions. Calvin Kubai, a lawyer for the claimants, told Declassified, "We relied heavily on your investigation, especially on the fact there were earlier fires. That was a very key finding.
Huge
We also
finding.
found that, right.
Like, this
We
might
also
be
found that British Army,
indicative of a pattern, you know?
right.
So, like, to me, this is why I pulled this article, honestly, was that this seems like intentional if they were doing it more than once, you know?
Right.
So, like, they're literally burning Africa on purpose.
Right. Or just, well, or you can argue ignorance, which
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
No.
But just the disregard of like, hey, we're here. There's no, or in their mind, no one significant is living here, so we're just gonna go ahead and do whatever we want, and not care for the land, not care for the inhabitants that live there. Sounds familiar. So, but yeah. But we continue. You also found that British Army exercises in Kenya had created enough military debris to fill 13 shipping containers. 13. So this wasn't like little bushfires. This was significant, like, damage being done. All of that could potentially be ignited by such fires. We later traveled to Kenya and conducted interviews with scores of people affected by the fire. Their testimonies challenged the British Army's claim that only private land at Logadaga had been damaged. At Mingongo Ini, a private school and refuge 10 miles west of Logadaga, we met dozens of malnourished boys and girls whose parents lost crops or animals from the smoke, leaving them unable to feed their families. One poor child fainted from hunger while we were there. Many struggled with sickness brought on by the fire. "I've been really affected," Samuel Lokire complained while holding a long white cane. "My eyes, my nose, my whole breathing system. Before I was able to see. but for now, I don't really see very well. My eyes are itching every day. I'm totally disabled. On the front line was a Maasai settlement, Kimugagura, who paid Logaiga for the right to graze 10,000 cattle on the conservancy. Half have died from the fire, Maasai leader Satuk Kaparo commented as he showed us a burnt barn.
That's 5,000 cows.
Right.
Like, have died.
Right.
That's plus all your farmland, and like that's murder in a lot of places.
Well, not murder, but just to give some context here, cows, especially Africa, but especially in East Africa, that's money.
Yeah,
that's like that. Those are dowries, like what you give to wives when they get married. That's income you're losing. So don't think of cattle as just like these big beasts that just graze. That's for them, their wealth. Right. So literally, it's like the British basically burned their money in terms of just their not exactly incompetence, but their complete disregard, in preparing for war, no less.
And food for the winter. That's what I'm more worried about. Like, but
so another Maasai herder, Elijah Mishami, said, "I've gone from having 300 to 5 cattle. They caught a disease from the smoke. The pastures we depend on are gone. We're being forced to migrate because of the drought as well." And I think probably climate change hasn't really helped matters there either, I'm sure. 2 vets confirmed the scale of animal deaths and injuries. Unfortunately, a lot of cows have lost their eyesight. They've gone blind from conjunctivitis and bovine blindness, Ruben Maina said. His colleague Flavian Nigunya, added, "It's massive, the amount of cattle who have died from the fire. During the incident, most died due to smoke inhalation, approximately more than 30,000. Latano Nabala, the elected speaker at the County Assembly El Lapika, stressed the impact of this loss on the Maasai. It is the animals that give the pastoralists pride. Animals define who a person is in society. Again, wealth. The more cows you have, the more you are expected. So when you kill our animals, not only you've killed what I could sell for food, you've also killed me as a person," the politician explained. "Our investigation found that the fire produced so much smoke it represented 7% of the UK's military carbon footprint that year. The landscape would take nearly 40 years to recover and requires 250,000 trees to be planted." The British High Commission in Nairobi said in a statement, "The Lagikaga fire was extremely regrettable, and the UK recognizes the length of time it has taken to resolve this matter and the frustration that this has caused within the affected communities." I mean, you brought this story to me, but thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of Declassified does a ton of these like super laser focused things on like particular issues. Like they've covered recently a case about UK soldiers raping African women, right? And getting away with it. I mean, they've covered a lot of this stuff in Africa, especially that the UK has been involved in. I think we covered not all that long ago a piece by them about another murder that UK military essentially did there, and had to be reprimanded and convicted of. But I find this is one of the times where one of their laser focused things might have larger implications about why are they doing this. Like they're gonna have their like, oh well, we're planning firefighter. I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't do that in tinderbox conditions in these regions. Like, you'd be a lot more careful. There'd be a lot more, and it's like, it's just, oh, oopsie poopsie, then accident. Yeah, you can't have an accident 5 times. Like, to me, this was deliberate. That's what I felt like reading it, that they're actively burning the countryside for some reason, you know? Like, I don't know what that is yet, but
well,
I mean, that's...
do we need a reason?
No, not necessarily.
Do we need a reason?
Like,
that's just my take on it. You don't need a reason. It's just, again, I think it's just almost kind of the stereotypical view of just like, you know, like going back to the idea of Israel, like we've talked about this on the show, where the idea the British proposed having Israel be in this region, funny enough. And they were like, you know, on the basis that there was no one living there, which is far from the truth. But it's the idea of like, these Black Negroes are insignificant, that, you know, like it wouldn't harm us if, you know, white Israelis made this region of the world their home. So I think it's still that psychological idea that, and I think it's almost kind of like, because Africa is so big and the land is so vast, that you have a lot of space to do whatever you want and you're not going to encroach on people. Well, again, in this region of the world, like the Maasai, I mean, this, you know, most people probably know the Maasai, who tend to be more nomadic, that they travel around. So that it's not like Nairobi, which is a huge bustling city. It's like out in the bush where it's a lot more vast. And you think, oh, you're not going to necessarily see a town or a city or a village for like miles and miles and miles away. So it's like the idea of like, oh, we can do whatever we want here because there's no one essentially in their mind living there, which is far from the truth. Now, granted, the Maasai are not necessarily making homes like in the permanent sense, but the land is their home. So it's still that disregard of not caring. Well, one, not caring about the people who inhabit the land. But number two, and probably more importantly, especially if you're a liberal, you talk about climate change all the time. You know, the impact of your waste and the pollution that you are producing, that as they reported in the article, it's affected their wildlife, which affects their money. It's affected their health, you know, which obviously requires time and money, which now they don't have in order to get better. And you know, and the failure of the economic system, given that these are, you know, shepherds for all intents and purposes. They work the land in order to create wealth and food and shelter, which they're not able to do due to the fires.
Yep. I'm with you. Pretty fucked up. And 4 million is nothing for that kind of wealth loss. You know, like even every Texan could tell you how much that beef was worth, let alone, you know, like, so, you know, I'm sure one of those farm corn fed boys could do a price list on that. You know, that's a lot of money, dude. But anyway.
So, I mean, but I thought, just as a quick aside, now I called this reparations, and I think in a lot of ways it definitely fits the definition in terms of like, you know, it's like the base of reparations is repair, like to repair for a wrongdoing. Now, I would argue the British government didn't necessarily say sorry. You know, it was just kind of like, yeah, we know we fucked up, but we don't really we're not going to fully say sorry, but here's some money just so you can be quiet and move on of our business. So that's kind of the impression I got, you know, as they were doing this. But I think it is very important because we talk about reparations, I think a lot among the Black community in America, and to probably a slightly smaller degree, like in the Caribbean as well. And often people think, especially in America, that reparations is strictly, an American thing, like a Black American thing, when it's really not. As you could see, now granted, it may not fit in the mindset of many Black Americans, but this story, in all intents and purposes, is a type of reparations that they got. Now, as you said, and I agree, it was not enough. I think, like when you broke down, I think what they said in the CNN segment, I think when it broke down to a person, I think they only got maybe around $200,
Right.
which is peanuts, but for them, relatively, it's a lot of money, I guess. But it's still the idea of, the community coming together, and shout out to Declassified for actually doing the work to make the connections that, the British government basically couldn't, ignore the story anymore, that they had to respond. So, but it's the idea of like reparations are needed everywhere, and it's not, I think, just exclusively to Black people. I think if you're thinking of it from a class issue, like this is a story really built, for everybody in terms of what is necessary. And I think this is kind of a good example of the media kind of working with the working class in order to get class action suit basically solved. So now you can wouldn't that be nice if like our media, well, mainstream, but really that's what we should be doing in independent media, like which kind of goes along the lines of what I say all the time. It's like, you have to affect policy. And that's really what independent media should be, is thinking of ways that we're able to affect policy where the government leaders were actually scared into taking action. So, which is what you saw here. So, unfortunately, we don't have that kind of apparatus or pull maybe at this point to be able to do that. But I like to think one day that we have the capability to. But I think it's, again, a matter of, as you said, when we came in tonight, I think a lot of people, especially even in our space, kind of chase the trending story or the headline story in order for clicks or views, rather than using these stories to empower and to support people in getting justice, or at least a step toward, which I think, and I think agree, definitely we want to focus on. But I think, again, it's just a matter of the will and connecting with the right people to be able to do that in a way that benefits the people who are oppressed.
Yep. I'm with you. Like, where are they going to start fires next? That's what I'm wondering. So, anyway, anything else you got?
No.
Okay. Well,
that's why we're demonetized, because we talk about stories like these. So if you guys want to support us financially, especially since YouTube basically said to us, we ain't remonetizing you, if you have a smartphone, scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you could type in the Ko-fi link that you see at the bottom of the screen in order to give to us financially. If you don't want to give through Ko-fi, you can give through PayPal, Cash App, or Substack. Those links are in the description. But if you're in the YouTube chat and you happen to forget the link or Ko-fi, you can type in !donate, all one word, in the chat, and the link will pop up and you can donate from there. Anything as little as $1 will help. And as we always say, please take care of yourselves, your friends, your families, your neighbors before you give to us. We know that times are hard, especially now as Jesus Christ, like we're in September. Like before too long, we got to worry about the holidays. Where did the year go? Honestly, where did the year go? Like,
time flies.
like we're already like basically in Halloween for all intents and purposes already. And by the beginning of next month, we're going to be talking about Christmas. So, but regardless, tariffs are going to be a thing this year. They already are affecting people. So Obviously, we want you to take care of yourselves, as we keep saying, to make sure that you're able to meet your ends as best as you can. But if you have any extra dollars lying around and you want to give to us, we'll more than appreciate it. That being said, we've been growing because you guys have been subbing and subscribing to us and liking our content, which we really appreciate. So make sure you continue to do that. And make sure you leave a comment to let us know what you're thinking. And from what we hear, that also helps with the algorithm when people engage in chat and comments and clips. But let us know what you think regarding this story in Kenya. Would you consider the class action suit reparations? How do you think this might be or should be a part of a larger story in terms of the fight for reparations for Black Americans and in the Caribbean, in the West? But I think more especially if you're looking at it from a broader scope of the working class, of how independent media should be working alongside the working class to be able to have victories such as these. So let us know what you think and help us get to free K. We hope to get there by the end of the year. And thanks for watching.